Hi, everybody. Welcome to Midweek with Meaning. I made a massive amateur move and scheduled my live stream to start at 10 p.m. So perhaps you were not alerted to it, which is totally fine because it doesn't even matter. If you're meant to be here, you will show up live. And if you're not meant to be here live, you'll watch the replay, right? So if you are coming on live, please make sure to put a little comment in so I can hear where you're coming in from and yeah, all that good stuff. I want to make sure I got everything going right. If there's any challenges with the audio, please let me know, but I think we're good. Anyway, this is Angela Ward. Welcome to Midweek with Meaning. We're hanging out in my beautiful garden sanctuary, and I'm in a whole new part of the backyard for you to see. So welcome, and thank you for joining me today. Today, I'd like to talk about the importance of the sacred pause. Have you ever heard that expression before? Hello from Vermont. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining. Have you ever considered a sacred pause? I think pauses are everywhere in nature for sure, and in just our processes of being human, being animals, being alive in the world. We live in a society that is so driven, especially in the United States or the North America and parts of Europe, that are just like very goal focused, very driven. Also, it looks like the sun's going to come around this beautiful maple tree here in a second and illuminate me. La la. We're so driven. And when COVID happened and everything shut down last year, I think people recognized that we were moving into a sacred pause time, but it was also super distressing for people, right? Because many people, there was a lot of fear. There was so much fear built into it, right? For sure. But there was an uncertainty. But I think that pauses are such a natural and important part of how we are meant to function. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because I'm feeling this kind of pausing energy, and friends, clients, my coaches, everybody seems to be in this kind of paused place. I wonder if you're experiencing this feeling too. There's this potential that's floating around, but there's not a moment for action quite yet. It doesn't feel quite like time of real action. So let's talk about some of the examples that we might see of why the sacred pause is so essential to who we are and how we are in the world. So my orientation, as you may know, is as a labor and delivery nurse or birth worker. I've worked as a doula for a long time in addition to labor and delivery. And it's so interesting for me when I have been with people that are laboring unmedicated, that are having a natural childbirth, that there comes a time for pushing and there comes a time of resting. And that is essentially, well, all contractions in labor require some level of focused attention. But when it comes time to push, there's nothing that stops us. Every woman I've been with, she may be afraid of the pain, or she may be afraid. I'm turning this a little bit so I can get my face out of the sun. Hang on. There we go. That's better. She has to push. Her body is just like, yes, this is the energy that's happening. That is a wave that she is riding. Her body just takes it over and she cannot resist pushing. And then when there is no contraction, she rests. She has to catch her breath. She has to slow down. She has to just kind of be in that space of no action, of rest, of sacred pause. In fact, if she pushes without the contraction, it's like trying to push a river upstream. It just doesn't work that way. There are times when women have epidurals that they can't really feel the contraction to push with. And they will push without a contraction, which just is like pointless. It's exhausting for the mother, it's exhausting for the baby, and it's really, really hard to make anything happen in that space. It's so much more effective to let her body and everything about her and her will and all of that just be like, push. The sacred pause, that pause in between contractions, is not only essential for mother, but it's essential for the baby too. It allows the baby to receive more oxygen. It allows baby to also kind of make whatever physical adjustments it might need to make in order to get in the right position to be born. Adjustments can happen in this pause, and it doesn't require any doing for that action to occur. So let's talk about some other places where you might see the sacred pause. And my favorite place to work with this is in breath. Of course, within breath, the most simple place to experience this action. So when you're meditating next time, or when you just have a moment to tune into breathing, you don't have to do anything. This isn't about quieting your mind. It isn't about achieving some lofty goal. You can access this sacred pause so easily. There is a turning of the breath that has to occur before you can take your next inhale. Let me see if I can rotate one more time. The sun is moving. See? That's how you know it's in real time, because the scenery is changing around you. And we're on ground because, look, the table's wonky. So one of the most beautiful things that was taught to me by my breath coach, Robert Lippman, he talks about how breath, when it's exhaled fully, if you're really dropped in, you can feel the beat of your heart before the breath pauses and returns. It's like desire is calling the breath back. And there's something really sweet about that place of quietude and awaiting that tide of breath to turn, return, and come back into the body. The same thing happens on the inhale, that you will reach a place of simple fullness with no need to strain or pull more air in, that it's just like this full, almost suspension in a way. And there's a bit of a pause as the breath then shifts into the exhale. So yummy. There's such beautiful places to tap into, is this like where the suspension lay. In fact, music couldn't even exist without the pause, right? Like if it was just a constant sound of notes and nothing in between, like it wouldn't have melody, it wouldn't have rhythm. That makes me think of the heartbeat, right? The lub-dub, lub-dub. There's a pause. So the invitation, and why I want to talk about this, is because I think people find the sacred pause distressing, especially if it occurs for you in a slightly longer time cycle, meaning let's say you're having a week of lower motivation, or maybe you feel like you're not getting stuff done, or I don't know, you're in that place in between the contraction and it's not time to push. But many people, and I think I have a tendency to do this too, but many of my clients for sure will get in this place where they're chastising themselves for, oh, I'm lazy, I'm not disciplined, I'm not doing things. And there is a place where we need to make sure that we aren't just simply not being disciplined, or using this, I don't know, there's a differentiation that I can feel. And if you have ever experienced kind of this differentiation of the pause, I'd love to hear it. Please post in the comments if you'd like. But sometimes that kind of slowing of our bodies, and I've heard this happen a lot with women. It's happened with me. where we get close to our menstrual cycle and a few days prior, there's just kind of this energetic slowing down perhaps, or a little bit more inward turning, or maybe even a little more moodiness can occur when it's kind of requiring this like container of gentleness and allowing and softening and receiving versus focused forward action doing. So yeah, I guess the differentiation for me, I know when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I know. And I would argue that you probably also know when you are truly slacking versus running into a place where your body is telling you to slow down or pause. Can I get a thumbs up? Anyone experience that? um, so the encouragement is to allow the slowing and to be aware that that's what's happening for you, that the sacred pause is happening for you now. This is, and it's just such a relationship to birth, such a relationship to birth. Like the baby's coming. When you're pregnant, you're not like partially pregnant. Like you're pregnant, you're having a baby at some point along this journey. And there's that pause of just waiting, allowing, and trusting, knowing that things are kind of forming as they need to in their own right timing to come through. I'd love to know if this is resonating with you. So please comment and let me know your thoughts. If you're feeling into this paused place, please know that it is okay, and I would encourage you to give yourself gentle permission to be with it. So let's say you have a project that's arising that you need to work on, and you're feeling like it's not a question of avoidance, it's just a question of the energy's not there yet. What if you gave yourself an actual period of time to simply rest and be? Just be for a while. Let's say, like, I have work I need to do this afternoon. I have stuff I need to do, but it's important to me, like sitting in my garden with you, which is why I came out here, is to just be with what's happening around me for a bit. Right now, there's a dragonfly flying around, and right over on this fence, can I do this? I'm going to see if I can show you and not disturb this little baby. Hang on. There's a hummingbird sitting up there. Did you see that thing? Hi, sweetie. Just a sweet little hummingbird hanging out. Okay. Oh, you're going to drink on the gladiola. So there's something really precious about being able to take that time and just be with what's happening around us. Because what are we doing? Why are you pushing? Why are you here? What? Oh my gosh, hang on, you guys. I just can't believe this. Look at, do you see this little sweetie right behind the gladiola? I wish I could zoom on here. Just like, oh, I'm just hanging out with you while you talk. I mean, I think that's a pretty auspicious experience. Hello, beautiful. What do you think? That's magical. Yeah. So, in what ways can you allow yourself to drop into that pause this week? To trust that there is a place of forming, of rest that you don't even really need to understand or know about. And for those science nerds out there that might be listening, my nurse friends or other health providers or other people that are more driven by data, we know that the brain cannot learn if it's constantly pressured in a learning environment. There has to be downtime. There has to be resting. There has to be naps. There has to be disengaging from the material. And in fact, people that are allowed to sleep or nap or do something completely disengaged from the learning process actually learn better, faster, and retain material more effectively over periods of time. So this rest is essential. This pause is essential. I also like to think about this in bigger cycles. So I've talked a lot about birth. I've talked about breath, which feels like a microcosm of that experience, although it's profoundly essential. Gas exchange at the capillary level, same thing with this kind of pause and the way that our heart beats and moves blood through our body. These are all essential, more time bound in a smaller window of the pause, but in these bigger ones, so of birth and gestation, of birthing and pushing. But then I also like to consider some of these bigger cycles. There are times, of course, for me to plant in this garden and to be extremely active in putting in the work out here. And then there are times to just be with it, because there's nothing more for me to do here but to allow to trust that these plants are going to find their way. They're going to grow. They're going to do what they need to do to thrive, and I can tend them, but I don't force any of these plants to grow a leaf or unfurl or drop their roots into the soil. I create the conditions, and then my role is less pushing, right? I can't like over push. I can't push in that space. I have to allow that it will come. There are also times and throughout the year that obviously the garden needs to rest and quiet. So in the wintertime, there's a lot happening in this garden, but it's quiet. It's pausing. The seeds are lying dormant, but they will come back. It's so interesting to me how that even happens. I'm going to see if I can show you another little thing here. Hang on. So here's more of my garden. And right here, I want to see if you can see this. This sweet thing right here, bloop. Wait, that's arugula. And that arugula, I think we planted like 5 years ago, maybe. And that stuff goes to seed and it comes back every year on its own. We've never had to plant it in ages. And we harvest it as needed, and then it bolts and it puts out these beautiful flowers, which taste amazing still, by the way. They're arugula flavored, but a tiny bit sweet. There's something that is being in this relationship and allowing that pause to happen. And it just is amazing to me where these things emerge from, how the soil just suddenly, there's a chunk of arugula growing out of there that we didn't have to do anything. It just is happening around us. So how can you let yourself rest into that sacred pause? How can you let yourself know that embodied place of the pause? So absolutely, I would suggest this week to give yourself time to tune into breath. I think that's a great place to start. Or if you can get down to the beach and just watch the waves. If you can get near water where waves are occurring and notice how they have to pull back. They'll come forward on the shore, and then there's a place where the gravity seems to pull them back. I'd love you to tune into that, like noticing that it's not like start, stop when the wave comes in. It flows in, it pauses, and then changes direction. It changes direction from out there and comes back. And how might you attune to that with your own body and your own schedule, your own state of being? How can you know when the contraction is coming, when it's getting to be time to push, and when it's time to breathe, to just slow and breathe? I would love your thoughts about that. I would like to talk a little bit more about discerning avoidance versus the actual pause. And it's taking me back to some ideas around birth again. There have been with some women who are afraid to push because of the ring of fire. That song is about birth, by the way. It's not Johnny Cash singing about something else. I don't know. It's not love. It burns, baby. So some women get really afraid of having to push through that burning sensation, that pain. And yet at that point, when they're holding back, when the energy is there to push, it is excruciating. It is excruciating to pause when the push is happening. It's like it tears her in two. It tears one in two in a way, because it's like the will is trying to say no when everything else is saying yes. Have you ever had that experience where you're saying no, but everything is saying yes, 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 and you're not wanting to allow that energy to push with you, to help push you through, even though it might be painful. Oh, that's an intense place to be. I can think of places in my life where it maybe was an emotional situation that the energy was very clear, and I was not wanting the energy that was occurring because I was resisting the discomfort it was taking to push through it. That sucks. And then there have been other times in my life where I've tried to push something without the natural contraction, the energy of it. And it's just like, feels like opposite ends of a magnet, where they're like just like sliding past, like I'm pushing, and it's like, it's not working, and it's hard, and it's complicated, and I'm pushing, and I'm feeling exhausted, and I'm feeling drained, and I have no creativity, and I'm super irritable. Have any of you experienced that? Have you ever had anything like that happen? Please raise your hands. That is hard. That's really hard as well. So I have to always remind myself in that place to allow myself to take a pause without making a decision. Like if I'm pushing and it feels like that magnet, or it feels like I'm like rolling something uphill, it's not meant to be a struggle. It's not meant to be such a struggle that we're pushing against something that's not in flow. I'm trying to say that without sounding woo, but when I get in alignment with this energy and I allow myself to tap in more to the pause and the push, I'm so much more effective in the work that I can accomplish, and I feel better, and I have more joy in my life, and I'm more rested, and I get to experience every moment of my life as really yummy. I work on that, I should say. I work on experiencing every moment of my life as pretty yummy. And for the most part, it pretty is. And this, I think, there's some challenges here, because we come from a society that's really driven in, our roots are in an industrialized ways of operating. We come from a society that's really, really, you have your 8-hour or 10-hour, or as nurses, our 12-hour, 16-hour days is a badge of honor of go, 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 go. And like, I guess that maybe made more sense when people could work and like have widgets, that they were making X widgets an hour, or maybe this is what Amazon experience is like, working in Amazon. I'm not sure. Also, fuck Bezos. Sorry. Not sorry. But that push, 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 get things done, get things done, get things done. It's actually not how we work. It's not how we operate. Since I've been working for myself for the last, since 2019 now, I really, when I first started working for myself, I was working like hard all the time, like really driven, feeling like I never get shit done. There's a list of stuff to do, and just like push, 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 push. And it was putting me back in the same burnout feeling that I had when I worked in the hospital, and I worked as a nurse in the hospital. Fuck that. That's not how we are supposed to be as humans. Once I was able to tap into aligning with this sacred pause, maybe putting the unknown question out there, maybe I'm working on a project or a problem and I don't have the direct answer to it yet, I can take a pause and just trust that if I step away from it for a moment, if I disengage, if I go outside, if I go for a walk, if I go to the gym, if I take a fucking nap, if I get in the hot tub, if I go to the beach, there will be that opportunity for creative inspiration, right? The inspired breathing inward. We will get that. You're exhausted with that exhale. You need to let all that kind of just be there until the desire of your heart beating pulls that inspiration back, right? Let's see what someone shared here. I'm going to see if I can pull this up on the screen. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, trying to push forward. Change needs to happen. It's been so long. Been aware of pause and respecting it, but still feel the hurry up and wait. How do you discern when to push through and when to respect the pause? So it's a really good question. I think part of this is learning to trust ourselves. And part of this comes from like super basic becoming in integrity with our word. First, like we have to become in integrity with our word, meaning that when we say we're going to do something, we agree that we'll do it. This is basic, super basic stuff. Like you said, you're going to go for a walk today. Go for a fucking walk. If you don't go for a walk, then you just made it so you can't trust yourself. You're out of integrity with your own word. And so subconsciously, you can't trust. So if you've been in my group work at all, if you've worked in the Spark Vitality Collective, the request is that you're a person of integrity and you step to the requests for the week. We get to create what we're working on. So if you're making an agreement to yourself that this week I'm going to get up and journal every day, get up and fucking journal every day. Because every time you do, you're training yourself. You're training yourself this consistency of like, yes, I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Look at that. How simple. So first, we have to develop that sense of trust within ourselves that we know that we are capable of doing what we say we're going to do. Sorry, the dog is chewing on, it's a bone, but I thought it was a piece of plastic, so it's all good. After we've developed more of that sense of trust, then I believe that we can get really clear about whether or not our pushing is futile or if we're avoiding. So for me, I'm working really hard this year on getting in better shape physically, getting stronger, building some muscle because I'm getting old, friends, and this muscle just fades away if you don't do something about it. So I know if I make an agreement to go work out, I'm going to work out today, I can talk myself out of it so easily. Oh, I'm really sore. I worked really hard yesterday. Like, I can tell when it's an excuse versus me tapping in and listening to what my body's telling me. If my body is saying, I'm actually deeply fatigued, or like there's a way I can tell a personal discernment between like magical thinking, like rationalizing what my decision is, like deciding I don't want to go to the gym, but then seeking the reasons I don't want to go to the gym. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's part of the secret, is really coming the other way, reverse engineering, like checking in with my body and being like, okay, how am I feeling? How's my body today? Okay, this part of my body's sore today, but I could still work this part out, or maybe this is a day of stretching. Like there's a different kind of gentleness that comes from that type of energy for me than this kind of weird avoidant place. Does that make sense? I hope that is answering your question a little bit. So first, building integrity and trust with your own experience, knowing that you are a person of your word, and then being able to tune in to be like, look, I'm pushing really hard right now. What would happen if I took a break? What would happen if I gave myself the sacred pause for a little bit? What would happen if I allowed a day of grace in my life that didn't require pushing, that didn't require finding the solution? You could also do something like, and I've done this before, where I feel like I'm really close to something, like maybe I'm creating something and it's like super close to having the manifestation of it. Like maybe I'm writing something and I feel like I have not quite distilled it down. Sometimes I'll give myself a timer exercise and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to complete this in 20 minutes. And there's something about that piece of integrity of like, I'm finishing this in 20 minutes that lets me work up to a point, right? And I've agreed with myself that by the time this 20 minutes is up, this is it. This is all I'm writing. This is all I'm doing. This is how I'm going to talk about it. There's something about that integrity, intention, that will like distill it down very quickly. And it kind of gets me out of the way of all the indecision maybe around something. And oh, weed whacking is happening. But at that 20-minute mark, I make myself walk away from it. I stop completely. And that would be a place to take the pause and just rest. And perhaps in that experience, there will be some inspiration where I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I should say. And then I can go back later and update what I was working on. But being in that integrity place and using that kind of like hard stop, I don't know, there's just some gentleness there. However, let's say I'm doing that 20 minutes and I'm sitting down and it's not coming. Like it's just not coming. It's like, it's really like, I don't feel like it's right there. Like when I'm feeling like I'm ready to burst something, it feels like it's in the air. I hope that makes sense. It feels like it's like right here. And like, if I could just like pull the thread, it would come through. That's great. But then there's also times that it just feels like I'm maybe spinning in circles mentally, or in a practice, I'm just going around and around. It's not actually going anywhere. That is a really big sign to me that something needs a pause. It needs a chance to untangle. My husband once said something really fantastic to me. He said, fire needs a spark, but it also needs space. A fire won't burn if it's packed right together, log on log. The logs need space between them. So remember that if you're working on these things, you need some space. You need a little space. So we've gone over time a little bit. Thank you for indulging me, and I really appreciate you being here with me today. If you're watching this anywhere, I have a request for you, my friends. I am trying to grow my YouTube channel to 100 subscribers so I can get a custom mural with my own Guardian at the Gateway instead of this weird number thing that I have. So if you haven't subscribed on my YouTube channel yet, I'd appreciate it if you would, if you'd share, if you'd like, if you'd encourage other people to do that. I'm close. I think I'm close to 60 people, and I just started asking yesterday. So I'm going to ask you if you would subscribe. And then just keep in mind, starting August 22nd, the request has been to do another course. And so there's been an ask to do the Resilient Wellness Workshop. So we're going to do that one again. I'd love for you to participate. We're going to make it really impactful and a short little yummy, like getting our heads back in the game as we move into fall and getting things kind of, really clear. So I'd love to have you there. Bring a friend. And of course, I'm doing this all for you, my loves. So please reach out if you have questions, comments, suggestions. I would love to hear from you. So have a beautiful day and go take a little pause. Mwah. Love you all. Bye.